For over 20 years, I was a procrastinator, but after learning and implementing a few simple concepts, I was able to break this habit for good in just 2 days. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I learned so that you too can put a stop to delaying your goals and end the habit of procrastination for good. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. And I want to begin by sharing something that's a little bit funny with you first and foremost. So here in my hand, I have my first grade report card. So I was about 6 years old. Now, I mentioned I had this habit for about 20 years. So what do we see here? Well, for some context, back then we weren't graded on ABC. We had O, S, and N. So O standing for outstanding, S satisfactory, and N you need to improve. All right. So what do we see? Exercises self-control. Outstanding. I was a disciplined 6-year-old. Meets school standards for behavior. Outstanding. Shows consideration for others. Outstanding. But what do we see here? Completes homework on time. Needs improvement. So I share that with you to highlight the fact that no, I'm not lying, that this goes way back for me. And I was a professional procrastinator. I would put things off to the last minute, wait to write that essay, wait to get that task done. I'd have a goal in mind and wouldn't really get it going until I had this sense of urgency or I was pushed to take action. And I lived my life for a long time only pushing myself as hard as I was pushed by my teachers, by my employer, etc. And sure, I watched probably dozens of procrastination videos, how to break the habit of procrastination, how to overcome procrastination, all these sort of things. But it just never really clicked until a couple months ago. And so let's get to the root of the issue, and I want to explain that first, and then I'm going to dive into the more practical concepts, the things that you need to learn, understand, and implement to truly overcome this habit of procrastination. All right, so what is at the root of procrastination? Whether consciously, whether it's at the forefront of your mind, or it's in the back of your mind, it's in your subconscious mind, the root of procrastination is doubt, a feeling of doubt. You doubt your abilities, your skills, your talents, your intellect, what have you. You feel like you don't have enough resources, you didn't come up in the right environment, you don't have the right connections, whatever it is, there's doubt there. Now, what causes us to doubt ourselves? I think that's a fair question. Well, I believe it's because, as Dr. Myron Golden puts it, you don't know who you are based on whose you are. What I mean is, if you truly believed and internalized the fact that you are made in the image of God, the creator of the universe, creator of everything, there's no way that you can sit up here and doubt yourself. There's no way that you can sit up here and say, no, I'm not the one. Nah, I'm not smart enough, not good looking enough, not strong enough, not fast enough. No, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed or sharpest tool in the drawer. There's no way that you're going to be saying those things. But our lack of action, our delay in taking action suggests there's a lack of belief, a lack of faith in that reality. And we've spent so much time being programmed and reminding ourselves constantly of all the things people have told us we aren't and what we can't be, that we start to believe those lies. You believe what your teacher said about you. You believe what your parents might have told you you can't do, or what your friends told you you're not good at. And you start to adopt those limiting beliefs, you take them on as your own. But as we start to flip the script, here's a reminder for you from 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 4, which reads, knowing, brethren, beloved, your election of God. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what does that mean? Well, the word I want to highlight to you here in this passage is the word election. The word election here is the Greek word eklogi, which means divine selection, that you've been chosen by God. In other words, you've been chosen by God to fulfill the purpose for which you were created. So if that's the case, who are you? Who am I to say, oh no, I'm not the one. No, not me. Or nah, I'm gonna do it eventually. Maybe someday I'll get to it. No, there's no way. Because essentially our lack of action exposes our lack of belief. And so essentially we're saying, nope, God, I don't really think you're right. But deep down, you know it and I know it. That's just a lie. So now that we're on the same page with this, how do we start to make a shift? How do we shift away from that old toxic manner of thinking? How do we overcome the imposter syndrome and the procrastination? It comes down to two things: focus and reprogramming. The first thing that you have to understand with regard to focus is that focus creates attraction, because as Tony Robbins has said, we don't experience life. We experience the life we focus on. To give you an example, if I pull up this visual and then I say, hey, don't look at the blue cow. Don't think about the blue cow. Are you thinking about the blue cow? Don't pay attention to the blue cow. Are you still thinking about the blue cow? It doesn't work. The blue cow is in your mind and you can't not think about it. So in the same way, if you're constantly rehearsing all your past failures, what your teachers said about you, what your parents might have told you when you were young, what your friends said, or the people who put you down and told you you weren't good enough, tried to remind you of all the things you aren't. If you're constantly playing those things in your mind, then that's going to inform your lack of action. It's going to prevent you from taking the action necessary to achieve your goals. It's going to continue sowing those seeds of doubt. So all in all, the main takeaway here is that whatever you decide to focus on, positive or negative, failure or success, it will become your reality. With that in mind, let's move on to the second step, and I'm going to explain further. And this is exciting stuff. I really love learning this, and I think you're going to as well. So let's talk about reprogramming your mind. Now, how do we get our beliefs? How did we get to this position where we doubt ourselves in a practical sense? Well, if I pull up this visual here, you're going to see the cycle that our minds are constantly at work going through, the step-by-step process for which our minds are programmed to reinforce our thought patterns and our beliefs. So whatever you feed into this process and cycle is going to determine exactly how your mind is programmed. So allow me to explain, and let's dive into the process. So it all begins in the top left corner with thoughts and stimuli. This is the genesis of this process. This is the very beginning. So by thoughts and stimuli, what I mean here is this could be your own internal dialogue, the thoughts that you're having, but also stimuli could be external. It could be something you were told by someone else. It could have been something you heard in a song or a movie or the news. It could have been what your teachers told you or your parents, etc. So it's a situation you had, it's a conversation you had, it's something that was directed toward you that you heard or experienced. Now, with every thought or stimuli, we move on to the second step in the process, which is attaching an emotion to it. Let's say you were in your 7th grade math class and you decided to raise your hand to answer a question, but you got it wrong and a couple other students laughed at you. They're cracking jokes. They're having a good old laugh at your expense. Now, what's the emotion that you feel from that stimuli, from that experience? Maybe you feel a little bit of shame, you feel embarrassed. Well, overall, it doesn't feel good, right? It's a negative emotion. And that takes us to the third step in the process, which is now a belief. Our belief then becomes, oh, I'm not good at math. Oh, I'm definitely not going to raise my hand again. You can forget about it. Then that moves us on to the next step. And this is where the RAS kicks in. And this is the powerful piece. The RAS stands for your reticular activating system. To give you an example of how this works, let's say that you had a dream car of a red Corvette. All right, so that's floating through your mind. And then when you go out, you're driving, you see red Corvette, you see it everywhere. That is the RAS at play. You've decided in your mind that this is something you want to pay attention to. And so your mind is picking up on those things in your environment. It's essentially trying to find proof for that belief. It's trying to call out and highlight to you the things that seem to be important, because ultimately, we never want to think we're crazy, even when it doesn't work in our favor. So even if I have a negative thought about myself, a negative belief, and it could be completely wrong, it could be completely untrue, but regardless of that, if I believe it, then my RAS is going to kick in and start finding proof. And this is a big part where self-sabotage starts to kick in. So we move along to the next step of this process, which is confirmation. So if you believe you're not good at math, then your RAS is kicking in. You're starting to find every opportunity of, oh, I'm not good at math. Oh, yep, I can't calculate 20% tip for this restaurant bill. Oh, yeah, nope, not very good at math. And maybe you're holding on to that belief for years and years on end. And ultimately, where this lands us is the final step, which is conviction. Every time you get some proof that reinforces your belief, you get confirmation, and then your conviction about this belief grows stronger. And it can grow so strong that it becomes your default setting. It becomes the way you live your life. And you may not even be aware of it. You might not even be aware of this limiting belief or this negative thought pattern that you have about yourself. But nonetheless, it is there. So going back to the original point, if you have had the habit of procrastination, if you are constantly, always delaying your goals, putting off tasks that you know you need to complete, then you need to understand this process and remember that it is always at work. This loop, this cycle is constantly at play, and it affects every single area of our life. So you have to do an audit. You have to do a discovery process and recognize where you have been sowing seeds of doubt and make a change and start reprogramming your mind. So how do you do that? Well, it starts again from the top part of the process with thoughts and stimuli. You can't get a good outcome by putting in bad, right? You can't put in junk and expect something great to come out of it. So you have to start being hyper aware of what stimuli you expose yourself to, the words you speak, the music you listen to, the movies you watch, the people you hang around with, and you got to start putting good in. Let some good thoughts, some good stimuli enter that process. Feel the good feelings that come with it and start to retrain your beliefs. Find proof of your success, your skill sets, your talents, your capabilities, and reinforce them. With that in mind, one key thing I recommend that you do, that I've been doing as well, is to watch daily my most recent video, which includes 42 daily affirmations about who God says you are. Set aside the opinions and trying to win the approval of others, but get in touch, get in tune with who God says you are. And so I made that video for that specific purpose. It's a quick 4-minute video. I recommend you go and watch it and like it or save it to your watch later so that you can reference it every single day, if not multiple times a day. And listen to it clearly. Listen to the words, listen to those affirmations and start to internalize them. And again, focus on the emotions that you feel as you're listening to the video, as you're listening to the affirmations, because the key thing to understand is your mind can't necessarily tell the difference between an imagined experience and a lived experience, which is why, for example, you can think back to a fond memory and it makes you feel good in this moment. It's not happening actively in this moment, but you reflect back, you're remembering the experience from what might be years ago, but it affects your emotions right in this moment. So go check out that video. I'll have it linked at the end of this video and in the description, but I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button so we can get it out to more people, and consider subscribing for more videos each week on how to improve your health and quality of life. Until next time, stay blessed by the best. Take care.